She spent 5 years believing her best friend tried to SA her. The truth is much more disgusting. 5 years ago, when I was 23, I had been working with a company that handled hospitality training and stuff like that. What we did really wasn't important, but at that point, I had been with the company for about 3 years already. Mark had gotten hired around the same time as I had, and we did a lot of training and stuff together. Got put in the same call center group, and all around just became extremely close friends that hung out after work since we lived close to each other and we were both unattached. To point out how close we had gotten, since we were both single, folks in the company and our department always made jokes that we needed to just say screw the company policies and start dating. We always laughed it off because at the end of the day, we both had made it abundantly clear to each other that we only saw each other as friends. For what it's worth, I don't remember how the conversation came up, but it had, and it was just a strictly platonic relationship. So yeah, we were basically attached at the hip for about 2.5 years when I met Paul, at the time 29M and currently 34M, and I began dating him. Paul and Mark got along fine at first, somewhat, but a few months into dating, Paul started to get upset if I said I was going to grab dinner with Mark after work, even if Paul was working at the time since he had his own long hours. For what it was worth, Mark seemed to understand where Paul was coming from and only grabbed dinner with me when I asked him, never prompting it himself. Well, on my 24th birthday, I decided to throw a party at my apartment, and when Paul flaked on helping me get supplies, Mark stepped in and helped, even going out and buying the lion's share of the booze for the party. The party got going, and Paul ended up showing up an hour after most of the others were there. After a few hours, most of the people started heading out leaving, and a few people slept in the living room because they were too drunk to drive. And then there was Mark, Paul, and myself. Mark insisted I go lay down since it was my birthday, and he knew I was already pretty drunk myself, so it wasn't right for me to clean up after my own party. So I said goodnight to everyone, and Paul helped me back to the room. Like I said, I was pretty drunk, and while I remember the night, I also remember being very off my normal composure. But he put me in my bed on my side facing the wall, and then laughed, and I pretty quickly dozed off. The next thing I remember is loud music blaring in the room and feeling completely bound. I was still inebriated, but as I tried to move around, I could feel I was tied to the bed and could feel someone on top of me. I was laying on my stomach and there was a hand on the back of my head pushing it into a pillow, so I couldn't see anything and I could feel someone trying to pull my pajamas down, stumbling to do so. And then this person was shoving his hand up against me. Someone was pounding at the door until I heard a loud crack, and then Mark and Paul's voices arguing. The pressure pulled off my head and I could see one of them pulling the other away, but in the darkness, I couldn't tell who was doing what, but there was a lot of screaming and crashing. A few minutes later, Paul comes back in the room and unties me from the bed and just holds me, telling me Mark had been trying to SA me. I wanted to file a police report, but Paul convinced me not to since he had gotten there in time and nothing had happened, according to him, which I should have taken as a red flag, but I just didn't at the time because I was so relieved that I had been saved. I took a few days off from work, blocked Mark on all social media, but not before he texted me trying to tell me that Paul had been the one to attack me and that he was the one that saved me. I didn't believe him because it had been Paul that came in and untied me though, and if Paul had been trying, then why would he do that? Plus, we were dating and it just didn't make any sense to me, so I thought Mark had just snapped or something. I ended up quitting from the company before my time off ended because I had been starting to look at advancements in my career and moving on, so I just decided that was my sign and tried to run away from it all. Paul and I kept dating for about 6 months after that, until I caught him cheating on me with a lady from his office. Maybe this should have been a bigger red flag to me too, but I had been trying to distance myself from what had happened. And then, life just went on. I got comfortable in my new job, stayed away from getting too friendly with anyone from work, and have never had a close guy friend again. Occasionally, I'd see Mark at the grocery store or around town. Like I said, we had lived close to each other and neither of us moved. And I never felt the need to since he kept his distance from me completely. And I thought I was mostly over what had happened half a decade ago, until I get a notification a few hours ago that Paul had messaged me. I thought that was odd because I had blocked him. He made a new account though, but I opened the message up anyway because of curiosity. I don't want to share the whole message because there's a lot of personal details in it, so I'm just going to hit the important details. So according to him, 1. Paul is an alcoholic and has been for years. Even back back when we first started dating, he pretty much was always drinking something or looking for an excuse. 2. He got fired from his job for showing up to work drunk and assaulting the receptionist by trying to force his tongue down her throat in the front lobby at 9 a.m. He was in court-mandated AA, and as a part of his recovery, he was trying to make amends with anyone he has wronged because of his habit. And finally, 3. Mark never tried to SA me. It was him. He had been jealous of my friendship with Mark and saw an opportunity to get him out of the picture because of how gullible I was. His words. I'm not going to lie, I threw up after reading the whole thing. He had so much detail behind all of it that I just felt sick to my stomach that he remembered everything. From how he had secretly put ties on my bed before I even went to sleep once he saw how drunk I was getting, to how he would beat the hell out of Mark and threaten to end his life if he went to the cops. I know it's not a healthy reaction, but I've been drinking a bit since all of that message hit my inbox trying to decide what to do. I know I need to call my therapist to talk about all of this, but my mind keeps going back to Mark and how betrayed he must have felt over it all. I even unblocked him on all my social media. He never blocked me, so his profiles popped back up pretty quickly, and I've been trying to decide if I should message him or not. I know logically that Paul should be the one messaging him as a part of his AA stuff, but I'm also pretty sure that Mark did block him since Paul mentioned not being able to find him on social media. But he also might not have remembered Mark's last name either, so it might be hard to find him. So, I guess my question is, should I message Mark? What should I even say? Sorry I didn't believe you when you said you didn't try to SA me? Edit. A close friend of mine answered her phone and is swinging by to spend the night with me here just so I have a shoulder to cry on, because I could just use a good cry right now. I'm going to leave Mark alone for now while I get my thoughts in order, but I'll probably send him a message in a few days once I can talk to my therapist. I also did put the wine away. It was not helpful right now, and I don't want to make the wrong decision and message Mark strictly on a somewhat drunk impulse. Now here are some relevant comments. One user said, yes, you should message him because that has to be an open wound for him that never healed. If he came in to try and stop Paul and ended up being the bad guy when he was actually the good guy, it is a punch in the gut, and never being believed about it is a constant pain that never really goes away. Good luck. And that Paul guy, glad he isn't a part of your life anymore. Then OP replied with, this is exactly why my mind has been going to Mark, because I feel so incredibly guilty. I've been sort of, I guess, cyber stalking him a bit here, and it seems like he's had an okay life, but I just feel like I owe him some sort of message now. Then user 2 said, all I will say is that you shouldn't be surprised if Mark wants nothing to do with you after you tarnished his name and kind of his soul in a way. I will bet that because of this, there's more than a couple of people that think of him as Mark the abuser and not just Mark. I hope you learned that you shouldn't believe the first story you're told when someone else's life is in the crosshairs of your poorly informed decisions. Y'all can get mad at that if you want, but this isn't a time to coddle anybody's feelings to avoid speaking an uncomfortable truth. There can be two sides of an argument without anybody needing to go call their therapist because they got triggered over an ounce of opposition. I'm sorry any of this happened to you at all. That should have never happened. But what happened to him is even worse, and at the end of the day, you are the villain of his story. While I completely understand that might be Mark's reaction, and it is totally understandable if it is, I want to make it clear that I don't ever go around calling him that, or outright telling anyone, even though my first instinct was to file a police report. Paul had stopped me when I had brought it up, and in hindsight, it's probably because the investigation might have revealed it was him, but I never told the company I was quitting because of Mark or anything like that, and only a handful of my close friends and my therapist even know of the assault. While that doesn't stop gossip, which may be what you're referring to, I don't actively go out on the streets screaming Mark was an SAer. I'm also not saying I expect to even want to be close friends with him again, and maybe now this is just my own selfish guilt that is telling me I need to tell him. But as other commenters have mentioned, and I am taking the advice of, it's better for me to process this new information and talk to my therapist first. Update. Next day. I went to bed last night after putting the wine away when my friend got here and woke up to so many comments and PMs that I can't quite get back to everyone without being repetitive. So I want to just answer a few common things I've been messaged or seen. 1. In a comment I mentioned, I have told a handful of friends. To be specific, I told 3 plus my therapist. I didn't have a whole lot of close friends back then, and wasn't part of a big friend group either. That said, one of those three were here with me last night after I got a hold of her, and she's every bit as disgusted as pretty much everyone else. I can't say for sure if any of them have told anyone, and honestly, given the passing of time, I wouldn't expect them to have the same crystal clear image of who they might have told. But I do understand this might have spread without me knowing. 2. I am looking into the statute of limitations in reporting in my state here. From everything I have read over coffee this morning, I believe it hasn't passed, and as several have mentioned, he literally gave me a written confession. And number 3, as for how I didn't realize Paul was an alcoholic, well, I don't have a good answer for that. I'm going mostly based on his message that told me he was always drinking, even back then. We weren't living together, and as I mentioned, there were plenty of days that I didn't see him, versus when I did, and I don't even know if he was even working late all the times he told me he was. Continuing, I have texted my therapist, and I am waiting for a reply now. I'm hopeful she has some time this afternoon or tomorrow so that I can speak with her, but my friend is staying with me for the time being until then, just so that I don't have to be alone right now, and I can't say just how much I appreciate it. To those of you that have provided advice or shared your stories with me, thank you. Deeply from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Last night when I received that message, I was thrown for such a loop that I didn't know where to begin or how to unpack it all given the time that had passed. Old wounds can be reopened so easily, and this one was a scar that didn't need much to make it pop. Update number 2. I would like to start this off by first saying I haven't gone back to the wine, though I did super desperately want to yesterday. I haven't really been much of a wine drinker since that night 5 years ago, and last week when I learned the disgusting truth about Paul. To those of you hoping I would file a police report, I did. I spoke with my therapist at length the Monday following my post, and she was shocked, but extremely helpful in helping me process everything. And she spent some time at the end of our session looking up the statute of limitation laws in my state. There are none, but she did warn me that my report might just be added to a pile of other charges Paul could possibly have against him, given that he was assigned court-mandated AA. All the same, I filed the report with the screenshots of his messages to me printed and attached. I'm not sure what to expect from that, and at the end of the day, I hope he has an absolutely terrible life if it goes nowhere. Now, as for Mark, my therapist was insistent that I at the very least write him something, whether it be a letter to mail him or a message on Facebook. He never reached out to me after I unblocked him, but given what he thought I thought of him, I think it's understandable. My therapist, like many of you, pointed out that while he knew he was innocent, the thought of someone believing him capable of something terrible like that could have weighed on him for all this time. And even if his reception of my message wasn't ideal, he deserved at the least closure that this new turn of events could provide. I took a few days writing and rewriting a message into a notepad. I didn't want to accidentally hit send before I had the wording right, and each time I sat down to write, I felt like I came up short, even though the message just got longer and longer. Again, I didn't think just saying, "Oh, guess what I learned? Paul is an absolute psychopath last week, surprise," would have been super appropriate either, but I wanted to find the right balance. Here's the message I ended up sending him. "Hi Mark, so this is a bit out of the blue, and I really don't know how to start this, so I'm just going to put it out there. I'm sorry for not listening to you. Paul messaged me last week and revealed everything, and I'm just sorry. This isn't easy to write, and you deserve so much more than just an apology so long after the fact. There's no excuse for me not giving you the benefit of the doubt other than I let myself be stupidly gaslit by a psychopathic maniac." Then I sent Mark a screenshot of Paul's message to me, pretty much confessing, and then I continued with, "This is the message he sent me. It even confesses to an assault on you in the event that you'd like to press charges against him. And I have already filed a police report for what he did to me. If you'd like to talk about any of this at all, my inbox is open. If you want to tell me to F off, well, I guess I understand that too. I'm not sure what I expect really, because this had ripped an open wound I had been trying to heal, and I'm not sure this might cause you some distress, but I felt you at the very least deserved to know. Anyway, back to me. I know I could probably have said more, but anytime I kept trying to write, I felt like it was just me making excuses. I sent that to him this past Friday, and I'm pretty sure he read it sometime between Friday and Saturday, as the red notification had been there when I checked Facebook again at lunch on Sunday. I had been out with my friend Jenny, who stayed over with me after I learned the truth when I told her I had messaged Mark. She wondered if he had responded, so I checked. Last night at about 6 p.m., my phone dinged, and while I thought it might have been a text from Jenny or maybe Mom, I don't really text or talk to a lot of people, I actually found that Mark had sent me a reply. He said, "I wish you would have listened listened to me back then, but I'm glad you know the truth. I thought that was all he was going to send me when the 3 dots kept going across the bottom of my screen. He was still typing when he sent me pictures as well. They were graphic, and Paul's assertion that he had beat the hell out of Mark did in fact also come with documented proof from him in the form of pictures. Mark went on to explain that he filed an assault report the next day after my birthday, but that the police had warned him against accusing Paul of SAing me, given the turn of events and my "don't speak to me again" text I sent him when he tried to explain himself. Nothing had ever come of his police report, and he wasn't even sure why. Neither am I, but he intended to follow up once more today. Mark is still very much the kind person I remember him being, and while I was bracing for him to hold a grudge against me, he instead just expressed his happiness that I finally knew the truth. We exchanged small talk through chat for a little while, but it was nowhere near the conversations we used to have. Mark is actually engaged to a girl he has been dating for about 2 years now. He had apparently never brought any of this up to her until she saw my name flash on his screen with a notification and asked who I was. While some of you expressed concern that my friends had smeared his name, he apparently never heard anything of it. He actually still works for the same company we had both been at, just now in a copywriting role for the marketing team. So, at the very least, the lack of a police report for me making a scene at work worked out in his favor there. I asked him if we could keep in touch, even if only with small talk, and he said that he thought that would be okay. Though he was a lot busier than he was back then between work and planning his wedding. While I thought that was going to be the end of it, he messaged me a few hours ago to let me know he refiled his police report with the added messages I had sent him, and that if I'd be open to it. He also said he'd like to meet for coffee with his fiancée in town, and a friend of mine if I felt more comfortable doing it that way. Not really sure if that's an entirely good idea, but I shot Jenny a text to see what she thinks, and if she'd be open to coming along with me. She said it's ultimately up to me what I decide to do, and she'd be there with me either way. So yeah, that's the update for those of you who have reached out and asked. Update. Mark and I are planning to meet for coffee here this weekend with some added supervision. I think his fiancée is curious of my intentions, which is fair. I have both apologized to him at this point, but also, as many of you pointed out, he deserved a giant thank you too. I know some of you are telling me to leave him alone, but he was the one to suggest the meeting, and in all fairness, I owe him at least a coffee, and much more truthfully. Words cannot stress how forgiving he has been over what has transpired, and though I'm trying not to blame myself for believing the psychopath, it's not as easy as just letting it go. I know in making my post, some would blame me. That's just Reddit. But being able to put this out there has allowed me some sense of relief in some ways that just talking with my therapist didn't fully accomplish. Police reports have been filed against Paul, and I do hope something comes from it. I know he's in AA, and some have messaged me saying I'm a monster for airing this out when he's trying to better himself. Seriously, I got at least 5 DMs to that tune, but to hell with that. The crap he did to me does not get absolved just because he fessed up 5 years after the fact. Final update. I haven't opened this account in close to a year and a half, and honestly never expected to come back to it after I aired out learning about the gaslighting monster that had attacked me over half a decade ago. The reason I'm back to posting on this throwaway account is primarily out of joy. My attacker, Paul, had a slew of other court dates already when I filed my case against him, and I had started to lose hope that anything was going to happen since I was reporting an incident from over 5 years ago. But the court system in my state was stupidly overbooked, and I just had to wait for things to take their natural course. Over the last few months, I started to get follow-up calls from an investigator that was apparently going over the details of Paul's case. He was already facing some time in prison over a different assault charge. His time in AA had proven not to be effective with trying to make amends, and the prosecutor was looking to add my report of SA to an overall criminal case against him. But it would require me to submit either a document to provide as testimony or to act as an in-person witness. Though I had received Paul's message, I hadn't interacted or seen him in person for well over 4 years, and my therapist suggested I might get some closure over testifying against him in court. This finally happened last week. It was hard, and I won't lie, I cried while I was in the stand, but it felt good. The years hadn't been kind to Paul, and while he certainly looked remorseful sitting in the courtroom, I couldn't give 2 Fs about how this was going to affect him. I left after that and found out just this morning that between his various cases, he's going to prison. I'm not sure how long, but I also know he is being added to the sex offender database, which is another win as far as I am concerned. Other than that, my life has been going pretty well. I've decided to throw myself into some new hobbies, another suggestion by my therapist, and overall have tried to just become the best version of myself as possible. My old friend Mark, who had taken the blame for Paul's actions for so long, got married in the middle of last year, and while he and his fiancée had offered me an invitation, I didn't feel like it was my place to attend. We hadn't been in contact for so long, and I didn't want to have anyone asking me questions on why I was there when I didn't really have any other friends attending the event. We message every so often, but he's got his own life, and it's not my place to intrude on that. I'm just happy that Paul's BS never got to derail his life in any huge way outside of the obvious. I will probably never have reason to log back into this account again, and really only did it today because I was just so overjoyed in hearing the results that it reminded me I had vented to you all so long ago now. To everyone who has reached out to check in on me, thank you. I appreciate each and every one of you. So, if you are a longer time viewer or a recurring viewer, you know that I am pro communication. And one of the stories I don't really like, and that we've gotten a lot of, is when someone is accused of something, falsely accused of something, and isn't allowed to explain their side of the story, or isn't heard out. And I kind of have to consistently keep that mindset to here, because I believe that in other instances, and this is just like that. And that one commenter mentioned that she didn't listen to him. I understand she went through something traumatic. I'm not taking that away from her. I understand that Paul did something bad. I'm not, trying to unacknowledge that, but she could have listened to him. And I am someone who's very pro communication. So for that, I am not satisfied, but I am satisfied that OP and Mark have reconciled. I'm happy that his life didn't get ruined. It's unfortunate he got beat up over this, though. By the way, he got freaking beat up by Mark, or Paul. He got beat up by Paul, but OP got her closure. Mark got married. Paul went to jail. They reconciled, and I would say overall this is a pretty positive ending. And I'm not going to hate on OP here. I'm not saying she's a terrible person. I just believe in communication, but I understand why it happened, but I'm not necessarily happy that her not listening to Mark happened. But anyway, what do you guys think? Next story. Story number 2. My 31M wife 29F left me for another man. How do I move on after giving up everything for her? A week ago, my wife, Marie, told me she fell in love with another man. It was so unexpected, and I didn't see this coming. She was the person who taught me what it is like to be in love. I was married to a woman, Amanda, who I loved, but I wasn't in love with. I was with my ex-wife for 8 years. We got together when I was 20. We have a kid who is turning 5 this Thanksgiving. When I met Marie, I was married and happy she had a fiancé. Marie threw a wrench in that. We formed a connection I never thought possible. I could talk to Marie for hours all day. She was extremely beautiful, the best looking woman I have ever been with. One of the hardest things to do was tell Amanda I was in love with another woman. It crushed her. She refused to sign the divorce papers and demanded we go to therapy. Eventually, she gave in, but that was hard seeing a woman I still care for being in so much pain. She doesn't talk to me unless it's about our kid, and that hurts. But I did all that for Marie. I even moved across the country from Virginia to Seattle because Marie wanted to be on the West Coast. I don't get to see my little girl as much because she's still in Virginia, and despite all that, she still left. We had a great marriage, and I did so much to keep her happy, and it wasn't enough. No warning. Last week, I found out she's leaving. I am depressed, and I've just been lying in bed. I don't know what to do. Edit. I am still involved in my daughter's life for the hateful comments criticizing my parental decisions. I call her just about every day. Edit 2. I never cheated on Amanda. I broke things off before I did anything romantic with Marie because I respected Amanda too much. I still care for her. She was my friend and is still the mother of my child. Now, here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "Unfortunately, cheaters cheat. Now you know what you put Amanda through. I'm sorry for your pain, but let it guide you to better choices in the future." Yeah, I had no idea she was that type of person. We both made sure to end things with our significant others before pursuing anything romantic. Unfortunately, she's been having an affair with this guy for 2 months now. Couldn't even give me the respect of ending things with me first. Then OP posted a question in the comment section that said, "So, if you fell in love with someone else and realized you were never in love with your significant other, you would just ignore it?" Then user 2 replied to that question and said, "Well, you put yourself in a position to fall in love with someone else. But if I put myself in this spot, I would go to couples therapy to understand why/how I got to that point and figure out how to co-parent. If you had done therapy, you may have figured out how you let yourself be in an emotional affair without even realizing it. You might want to do some research into limerence, talk to a therapist, and decide whether or not you were ever really in love with Marie. You changed the trajectory of your life, your ex-wife, your child, and Marie's fiance's lives for a woman who is apparently a serial cheater. Did you ever question why she wanted to live on the West Coast? I wonder if it was to control or limit your interactions with your exes and daughter. I still wouldn't call it an emotional affair, but Amanda really wanted to do therapy when I told her and to try and make things work. I go back and forth because when I told her, she thought it was something she did. She kept asking what she did to make me unhappy, but it was nothing. She was a great girlfriend, wife, and mother. Sometimes I wonder if I just tried therapy, would we at the very least still be friends? It hurt a lot that I didn't fight for our marriage. Once she realized I wasn't budging and wasn't willing to try anything, she became cold. To this day, I want my friend back. Update: I'm finally starting to heal. I probably won't date for a long time, but I'm starting to hang out with my friends more. I was very depressed for a month, and I still am. I've tried to rekindle my friendship with Amanda, but she's not interested. She told me how I feel about Marie is how she felt when I left her. I reassured her that it wasn't her, it was me, and that Marie brought out something that I never felt before. I told her she was a great wife, and she will find someone who loves her the way I loved Marie. Even after all that, she told me she doesn't want to talk to me unless it's about her daughter, and has ironically been more cold. The good news is I started a new hobby. I've been going roller skating. We formed this amateur team and the people there are really amazing. I have been keeping myself busy by doing all sorts of activities. Here are some more relevant comments. One user said, "There's nothing ironic about her coldness. You're acting like it doesn't make sense. It does. You don't give a single solitary damn about Amanda. You're just lonely and trying to convince her to let you use her until the next Marie comes along. Thankfully, you're the idiot in this conversation. You showed your ass, and she was smart enough to give it a great big kick. Your wife is not a stand-in for the star of your romantic life. She's your ex. She doesn't even remotely care that you are lonely, and she shouldn't. She has her own life to live." Here we go again. I explained before I do care about Amanda. More than anything, she was my friend. I knew her for a long time. I tried to stay friends with her following our divorce. This isn't a new thing. She is the one who rejected my friendship for years. I completely understand why, but I didn't just decide out of the blue I want to be friends. She knows I want to be friends with her, but the ball is in her court and has been the entire time. Update: I'm going through a really bad divorce where my wife cheated on me, and I planned on staying single for a while. The thing is, I'm starting to develop a crush on this person I go bowling with. I have been depressed and started doing activities to keep myself busy. It is the first time I started having feelings for someone else. What's holding me back is I still love my ex. I got a new job and will be moving from Seattle to Phoenix soon. Update 2. I will try to condense this as much as possible. I was with my first wife Amanda for 8 years and have a beautiful daughter. Unfortunately, during our marriage, I fell in love with someone else. That woman ended up cheating and leaving me. I tried to maintain a friendship with Amanda because even though I realized I didn't love her, she was still my friend. Anyway, I was talking to a mutual friend and she told me Amanda put herself out there and went on a date and has been talking to this guy. After we got off the phone, I called Amanda, but she didn't answer. So I texted her, "We need to talk." Amanda eventually calls back, and I ask her about our daughter. Our daughter spent the weekend at my parents' house. She told me she will pick her up in the evening. Then I told her this serious question. I asked her, "Are you still in love with me?" She said, "Unfortunately," with an attitude. I said, "Then why would you think it's a good idea to date right now?" She got angry and said that it's none of my business. I told her I'm coming to you as a friend. Dating while still in love with me is not going to help. She said her therapist said it's time to put herself out there. I told her that her therapist sounds like a horrible therapist. She told me shut up. She said, "Do you know how much this impacted me?" She said, "I loved you and always tried to be a great wife for you, and that wasn't good enough." I interrupted her on the phone and just said, "Amanda." I then told her that I get it. When Marie left, I couldn't even finish my sentence before she said, "You are a freaking prick," and then she hung up and blocked me on Facebook. I don't know. I'm trying to look out for her because she is the mother of my child. Update number 3. I have copy and pasted the email she sent back to me. It says, "I appreciate your apology. I have a lot to say. I can't stand talking to you anymore. I've already spoken to your parents and they agreed that all communication should go through them. I've said multiple times that I only want to talk if it's about our child, and you refuse to respect that. I don't think you realize or care, but your behavior since that person left you has been nothing short of disrespectful. The impact this has had on my mental health has been insane. Even though you don't care, and don't tell me you do, saying you care doesn't mean anything, I'm going to try to explain it to you. I've tried to explain this to you multiple times, but you always turn it back to yourself. I love you. I wish I didn't, and I don't know why. You are the love of my life. As dumb as it is, I wish you still were my husband. Every time I talk to you, it's a reminder of the life that I lost. Please, going forward, if you actually care about me, respect my boundaries. As hard as it was when that person left you, imagine if you had a child with her and had to talk to her every day as she explains that you couldn't make her happy, but this other man can. And then the email ended. I'm not sure how to respond. I took everyone's advice, but I'm kinda hurt. My parents went behind my back and basically agreed to act as a liaison of communication for us, without talking to me. I'm trying to respect her boundaries, but what about being able to talk to my daughter? Because of her blocking me from the phone, I haven't been able to talk to my daughter. It's already hard living so far and not being able to see my beautiful girl as much as I would like. I want to respect the boundaries she's placing, but I can't agree to anything that will have me talk to my daughter less. Update number 4. I didn't realize it until last night. I just moved to a new place, and my neighbor, she was taking me to drinks, and she said, "You don't open much, do you?" I hope I can go back to the old me, but my ex-wife took something from me. I was more vulnerable with her than any other woman, including my first wife. She taught me what love is. I made so many sacrifices for that woman, and she still cheated. I've been keeping myself busy, as it hasn't even been 6 months since it happened, but when I make new friends like my neighbor, it's hard to let my guard down. I just wanted to ask her, why are you so nice? What's your end goal? I didn't do that obviously, but I miss the old me. Update number 5. I've been taking in a lot of people comments and I have a lot to say. Most of the comments have been mean and hurtful. That being said, I decided to use it to self-reflect and grow. Some common things I learned. People feel like I'm not taking accountability for what happened to Amanda. I want people to know I take full responsibility. I have to learn that even though my intentions were in the right place, that doesn't change the hurt. People think I want Amanda back. Not true. I want people to know that I do empathize with what happened. I care about her and want her to find someone. I just don't think it's healthy to date while in love with someone else. People think I abandoned my daughter. Not true. I'm doing my best to be in her life. Still, I do take accountability for the pain I unintentionally caused Amanda. I still care about her and what's best for her. I fell in love with another woman and I wish I didn't. I was horrified when it happened. Right now, I just need someone in my corner. I need comfort and to heal. I hope this clears up any misconception. Before you comment on my post, understand that I take full responsibility and I'm looking for ways to grow as a person. I can't be the father I want with my mental health in the gutter, and this is why I need comfort and doing things to help me get out of this depression. This guy is something else. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So I'm glad that at the end he recognized that, he has to take accountability, but he's like, I fell in love with my bowling partner. Like, this dude is just like romantically and emotionally immature. I'm glad he's recognizing stuff, but it came way too far down the line. I don't want to say too little too late, but better late than never, but just way too far down the line. And he still hasn't mentioned therapy. He says, I have to find ways to improve myself. How about you go to therapy, bro? Because you need it. Also, it seems like he's picking up all these activities so he doesn't have to be alone with his thoughts. Like, that's what I was thinking. He's like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then he meets his new neighbor and he goes out for drinks with her. This guy just seems to latch on to any woman who gives him attention. It seems like he almost understands what's going on. It seems like he almost grasps the concepts, but it seems like he just needs a little help. But anyway, guys, what do you think about this story? I'm sure you guys have a lot to say on this one. But everyone, thank you so much for watching the video. And I am going to do a double backflip the second this video ends, so you won't see it. Don't ask for any video evidence. But anyway, bye-bye!